I love our little intro track.
I really do. Like it's got a whole vibe to it and everything.
Always like dancing to it. A little 24 seconds of a vibe. I like that. Awesome. Welcome, everyone who is joining us for the live and who's watching us on the replay. It is time for another grand episode of Tuesday Talks. How's it
Tuesday
going this week so
talks.
far?
It is. Let me tell you, I was on spring break last week, and so coming back after spring break, everybody's like, "Oh, welcome back." Yeah, not really. No, really, what happens in the school building is everybody's like, "We back.
Yeah.
How much longer we got to go?"
Count down the
It was
remaining
tough
Mondays.
on Monday. It was tough on Monday.
Yeah. I'm digging this sweatshirt you have on, Math Squad. Tell me about that.
Math Squad. And on the back it says you can count on us. Okay.
Oh, got it. I love that you love math so much. Just creates a nice balance between the two of us.
Well, thank you. Yes, I love the balance. No, I don't know where this came from, but math
I
is
like
easy to
it.
me, and I like people their light bulb come on when I explain it to them and they actually get it. So
Gotcha. Well, that is a great segue into tonight's topic because we're talking about students being stressed for success, and math was a subject area for as long as I can remember. For me, that was a stress trigger always. From I can remember being like in elementary school and they would split the class up and line us up, and you got to the front of the line, and whoever could solve the math fact that the teacher gave the fastest would get a point for that team, and we would compete against other classes on our grade level. Stressed. I was so stressed because I don't like to do math under pressure. I don't like to do math at all, but I definitely don't like the stress of, you know, having to have the answer first. So from a very early age, that was a point of stress for me, and it just evolved over time. So yeah.
and like the sad truth is you are so not by yourself on the way that you feel. I mean, I really think I start every class at the beginning of the year saying, I'm not even going to pretend like this is easy or that y'all like it or love it or any of those things. It's all fine. We're going to get through it, and you're going to learn some stuff along the way. Um, I know it reminds me of a student that I've had recently that I talked to about like every time she's super smart, super, super smart, like top in her class. And she comes to me and she's a ball of anxiety trying to like figure out her problems.
Hmm.
And she's smart, like she knows what she's doing, but she's so self-conscious. It's a lot of like self-induced stress that I can see in her. And so, she's dealing with that anxiety, with perfectionism, expectations from her family and the people around her, her peers who, think she's going to get everything right all the time. Like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, it is. It's a lot of pressure. And if you're not really sure how to respond to that pressure, you might either just ignore it or just tell them, oh, it'll be okay. But their anxiety on the inside is telling them it is definitely not going to be
Mhm.
okay. And so tonight, as we talk about student stress for success, as always, we share solutions at the end of each episode, and
Mhm.
we'll provide some actionable solutions for you to kind of address some of the challenges that you may see if students or your children are feeling stressed in school. So we give those solutions for parents and teachers. That's one of my favorite parts of every episode because you can't just state the problem if you're not going to provide a solution.
Mm-mm.
So I know you taught a lot at the high school level for many years. And so in high school, that's just a natural time that you might start talking to kids about college, getting ready for the SAT. If you're going to take the SAT, what college are you going to? Did you apply early, making sure you took the practice SAT test so you can get ready for the real thing. So did you see stress in your high school students? And if you did, about what grade did you start to see that?
It definitely depends on the student and their goals and like how committed they are to being that typical good student
Mhm.
that we talk about so much. So I've seen the whole range, but I would say even in ninth grade, um, is where because you have a few more years left and you can see the end of school coming. And because it's the end, you know that, well, something's going to be different. Like this is about to stop. This thing I've known for 13 years.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? And so this test has been portrayed to students and parents and society as it is the end all be all that matters and determines your life after high school. It's a lot of stress on them.
Yeah, I was watching the Today Show last week, while I was having my coffee in the morning, and they had a segment on stress related to college admissions. And there's the author of the book there titled Never Enough, and she was talking about how kids as young as seventh graders are feeling the pressure and the stress on making sure they perform at a certain level academically because that translates into early college admission. And a lot of high schools now offer early college where you can start taking college courses in high school and earn that college credit. So, what they talked about in that episode was, as far as dealing with the child's stress, parents can really just validate the feelings. Like, yes, if they get a rejection letter from a college, and validating their feelings of sadness, rejection, any of the emotions that come up from that, and not just dismissing it and just saying, "Oh, you'll get into another one. Don't worry about it." But really validating their feelings and then reminding kids that feeling of rejection is just temporary, and then really
Mhm.
talking to kids about what their college engagement on campus looks like versus what name is on the school that they went to. We want to go to these really prestigious schools, the big names. And so, really talking about it's not more important about where you go, but how you engage on campus as well. Did you ever have any students in your high school classes that were also dually enrolled and taking college courses at the same time?
Yeah, but not a lot because I tend to stay with the ninth and 10th grade curriculum for math, but known several seniors. I mean, at this point, you can graduate high school with an associate's degree
Hmm.
if you play your cards right. Um, and again, it depends on the student, but some of them even found that the pressure in the college classes was a lot lighter actually than when they were in, the seats in the high school. I thought that was pretty interesting.
That is really interesting. I wonder how that happens. I guess I don't know. Maybe the expectation is a little more front and center. You're here, we know you're in high school, but you're also taking college courses. So maybe the load is a little bit lighter. I don't know. I wasn't fortunate enough to take college courses while I was in high school. So I don't know what that pressure feels like personally, but I really liked how on that Today Show episode they gave some really great tips for parents if they are in that situation. So if we have anybody watching who has kids seventh grade and up, or you know someone who does, feel free to share some of the solutions that we talk about in this episode tonight. So I know when we talk about stress in school, it could be related to state testing, it could be related to GPA in high school. And what are some of the ways that stress can look like that you've seen in your experience?
So, even as adults, sometimes we get stressed and like we just shut down and we give up. And for the kids, it could look like, I just don't care, like real nonchalant about everything. It could look like, well, I'm just going to sleep. I'm not going to do anything in class
Yeah.
because this is too overwhelming for me. I can't process all this. So, I'm going to try to block it out. Um, Over obsessing. the other end of the spectrum, like the girl that I mentioned when we first started, and always coming and like, I got to get this, I got to get this. You don't know my parents. Well, yeah, I
Mhm.
probably do, because my parents were it's not like they were similar to yours.
Yeah.
Um, who just from a good place understand that these things are important, and you just want to make sure that your kid has every opportunity that they can get. You know, not being organized is another sign of kids who are under academic pressure. Acting out instead of shutting down is a lot,
Mhm.
some of the things that we'll see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that a lot of the workload that we put on kids as well could be a stressor too. So we talked about the pacing guides in a few episodes back. If you haven't checked that out
Mhm.
yet, I encourage you to do so so that you kind of get a understanding as a parent what teachers are directed to teach within a certain period of time. So workloads on kids could be very challenging. They're balanced in multiple subjects. They have homework assignments, they're working on projects, their exams. So when you put all of that together, it can be quite stressful. And that transition between like second to third grade, fifth to sixth grade, and then that eighth to ninth grade transition can be very stressful for kiddos because the expectation changes so much, even from second to third grade. I've talked to teachers and I've witnessed it myself while working in the schools. Um, there's a lot of hand holding that goes on in second grade. That third grade is like, okay, the training wheels are off. Now it's time to really be more independent. And that shift can sometimes cause a lot of stress on students. And I know you've probably seen that too at the middle school level and then again at the high school level too.
Definitely. The shift from fifth to sixth, going into a whole new building, with, oh, you're used to being, every transition, you're used to being the oldest in the building, and all of a sudden you have to start all over again when you
Yep.
get there, with brand new teachers who don't know you, who have this, what seems like a higher level of expectation that you're not used to. From eighth grade to ninth grade is a huge jump in students holding themselves accountable for what they have to do and what they're responsible for. And
Mhm.
it's so important that, there are some schools who actually have transition plans put in place for those kids who are going in between those grades. And I think that's really cool. I think that's necessary.
Yeah, I definitely think it is. And I know a lot of schools from elementary to middle will have like a welcome to middle school night where you come and before the first day of school you might go over the summer to check out the locker system and all of that, and that's great because the logistics have changed. Now you have a locker where you're keeping your materials, all this stuff, but the expectations shift as well. So I know for me and with the younger kiddos, that second to third grade, the level of organization, being able to organize your materials, keeping your agenda organized, writing down your homework assignments. Kindergarten, first, second grade might have a folder that the teacher might check. Make sure you have this all written down. She might print out the homework assignments for you. That shift to third grade, now you're expected to look at the agenda on the whiteboard or the smart board, copy it down in your own agenda.
Mhm.
The task of looking at something on the board, remembering it, and then getting it down on your paper correctly may seem like an easy task. That involves a lot of skill, that executive functioning, which I know we'll talk about in another
Listen,
episode.
yeah, like, so I was in Matt's class while I was on break, and because I mean, as teachers, we never get to go hardly anywhere with our kids. So I went to go read. I went on a field trip, and one of those days, every kid has this little worksheet, and the teacher has like three simple sentences on the board, and the kids are literally just working on copying down what they see on the board, practicing forming the letters in kindergarten. And I'm like, oh man, this is where it starts. And then that jump from second to third, okay, you got to know what you're doing, because now we're using y'all. This is not what we're learning. we're using this to learn.
Yes. Yes. So if you write something down incorrectly, the teacher more times than not does not have time to go back to make sure everybody wrote it down correctly. The expectation is that you wrote it down correctly. So if you wrote it incorrectly, you're not going to complete the assignment the right way. And so then that is now on you as the student. So those workloads and that transition between grade levels can really be an area of stress for kids. And, of course, not to mention peer pressure, this world of social media that we're in as well just shifts the social dynamic too. And that can create stress within the school environment. And I'm sure you probably see that a lot at the middle school level.
Middle school is that age where they're trying to figure out who they're going to present themselves as, and they're using their peers and now social media to make those decisions about themselves. And add on top of that, hormones are kicking in, and they ain't never experienced none of this. They don't even really know what's going on. um it's a whole hot mess that is created in those middle school years, I promise. And it's like, for me as a first time eighth grade teacher who is used to teaching high school, I found myself within, my lessons, having to take time to address how they need to behave in order to be ready for the high school. I spent a lot of years teaching ninth grade, and I always felt like the kids came to me unprepared as far as just how to be a student and how to learn in this environment. So I've decided to do that for my eighth graders. And what's interesting is, even though it takes a while, you have to be patient. I
Mhm.
see students progressing and developing into a type of student who can be successful in high school. So that training that schools need to do for those transition times, it does need to be more than just, hey, come look at the school, here's a tour of the building, here are our rules kind of thing. Like, there needs to be some sort of class or connection time, extra learning time, where you're spending with them, just teaching them skills, study skills and
Mhm.
things.
I remember my first year of college, they had like a welcome to college course that all freshmen had to take. And did you have the same? It was
Yes.
a course that basically did exactly what you said, which was like, listen, these are the expectations now that you're at college. These are resources that you can use on campus. These
Mhm.
are, ways that you can engage in campus life. It really was a semester long course on making sure you understood what the expectation is. Now, I understand in middle school, high school, to dedicate an entire course, you already can't fit in all the stuff you got to teach anyway. So, fitting in a course for the entire semester or school year isn't really feasible in that first year. But I think it would be beneficial.
Well,
Okay, you
so the
different?
way high school is set up now, with more classes that you can take online outside of your regular schedule of classes, it's actually possible, depending
Wow.
on what type of schedule the school is running. They could, like, the high schools in my area, a lot of them have about 24 credits that the students need to get to graduate, but the
Mhm.
students have the opportunity of uh, taking like 28. Or in
Okay.
some places I've been before, it was like 30 something. And so they have extra space for extra classes that they could implement something like that for them.
Gotcha. I think that would be super helpful, especially for that transition from eighth to ninth grade, because the expectation really does shift. And on top of the workload, the pressure associated with transitioning between grades, if they're involved in any type of extracurricular activities outside of school or on a school based team or club, that's another layer on top of this tall stack of responsibilities for the students. So that can also be an area of stress that makes students feel overwhelmed because now they're having to balance the academic demands with these extracurricular commitments that are important on your college application to say
Mhm.
what clubs you were a part of, what leadership roles you took. If you're an athletic student, you know, where did you rank in the district that you're in the county, the state? So that demand can also be very overwhelming as well.
And imagine if, because some kids who are involved in those extracurriculars, especially sports, like their parents are pushing them in that
Mhm.
direction. So even think about, you said layer on top of that, like parental expectations.
Yeah.
And not just for the academics, but also for extracurriculars and athletics. And these kids are under this mound of pressure that some of them they just don't have the tools to handle, and they're having a hard time surviving.
Yeah, yeah. And then if you have a student that is, feeling out of control, that could be one of those observable stressors. So once they feel like, you know, kind of like the analogy of the circus performer with the plates spinning on the sticks. I know I feel
Mhm.
like that as a parent and as an employee, and we have this podcast. So if you have all of those layers and you think of them as these plates spinning on sticks, they have a lot of plates to keep spinning. So if one
Yeah.
falls, then they all fall. So that perceived lack of control can add to that stress and that feeling of being overwhelmed. And I think that's when you can see the manifestation of those stressors. And that could look different for all different kids. They might act out in a different way. They might just shut down, like you mentioned before, and just give up on everything. You might see it in their attitude at home and just their engagement with whatever family activities that you might, engage in on the weekends. So that lack of control can really be super stressful as well.
Right, exactly. Tiffany, what about, I know we just got done talking about special education and students with
Mhm.
disabilities. Can you talk a little bit about how these things affect them?
Definitely. So if you have not watched our two-part series on special education, please go back and watch those because we really came with, I think, a very approachable way to look at special education services and how to differentiate the types of special education services kids can receive in schools. But
Yep.
yes, if your child has a learning disability or categorized as special needs, receiving any type of special education services, that can also add stress as well because what that signifies, the need to have an IEP, is that you're not achieving on grade level. So now you're trying to work towards being on grade level so you can graduate from high school with a diploma rather than a certificate of completion, which
Mhm.
very different. So if you don't have that diploma and you go apply for a job after high school and it requires a high school diploma, your certificate of completion does not count. So make sure you're aware of that. So just think about the stress that is on the student if they're aware of their learning disability. And then the stress, of course, on parents too, because you want them to get caught up. You want them to be on grade level. And so you might be putting extra pressure on your kids to perform at a level that they're not really capable of. And that's why students who do receive special education services through an IUP can stay in high school through age 21. So they have those extra years to gain the knowledge and the skills that they can to hopefully get them to that level of being able to graduate with a diploma. But I know there are some states, Michigan is one that comes to mind, and I only know this because the work that I do spans the United States. So I work in a lot of different states, and every state works differently. So
Mhm.
Michigan actually doesn't, they only have one option is the high school diploma. So you only have that. Other states and counties will have different levels of diploma. They might have a special diploma that you graduate with. They might just have a certificate of completion. So most have other ways that you can say, yes, I graduated and I have a diploma. But states like Michigan, it's either the certificate of of completion or a diploma. And the difference is Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 is required for a high school diploma in Michigan. And I was just talking to one of my colleagues about that. So Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 can hold you back from obtaining your high school diploma. So imagine the pressure. Okay,
Wow.
I already talked about my stress with math at the top of this episode. So now
Wow.
you added letters to the math equation. Get out of here. So
That's when it
that
gets fun. It's fun then.
we have two different definitions of fun, my friend. Very much so. That is no fun for me. But so imagine you have this student, and the student is your child, and they have this learning disability or special needs. You want them to be exposed to different extracurricular activities. You want them to be involved in sports. And so then that's just another layer on top of this basically stress salad that we're composing at the high school and middle school level for these kiddos. So imagine what that must feel like
Man,
internally.
they just babies. Like they really just babies. So as always, as we present, things, issues, problems, whatever we're talking about on our episodes, we always want to end with some possible solutions, some things to try. And viewers, of course, we want to hear what you guys think as well. Tiffany and I have our own experience, but we know that you do too. So jump in the comments and let us know what are some solutions that you think, what are some things we can do to help unlayer some of these things off of our babies?
Definitely. And I know typically I give some solutions from the parent side. So, as parents, I think that we need to help our kids process the stress. Like we talked about at the top of the episode, validating those emotions that come with it. Yes, you're stressed about this project, or yes, you are completely uninterested in completing this project, but your stress in this moment is temporary. Your desire to not want to complete it is temporary, and asking them questions to just kind of unravel the thoughts behind what has gotten them to this level of stress or disengagement, because that could be a manifestation of the stress. They disengage. And so asking those questions and talking to teachers about what the expectations are for the current grade level that they're in, and then of course whatever grade level they're transitioning to, and have the student be a part of those conversations with the teachers as well. So you're not playing relay man or relay woman, taking information from the teacher and relaying it to your kid. Bring that kid in on the conversation. They are they are the part of their learning. And so they need to be a part of that conversation too. What are some solutions you have for teachers?
Yeah, so I think it helps that teachers make time, like in elementary school, those teachers spend a lot of time up front giving expectations, re-going over expectations, and practicing those expectations with those kids so that as the year progresses, things become routine.
Mhm.
So I think that that's one thing that can be implemented all the way through, even the 12th grade. When you know what the expectations are, it takes some of the anxiety of what's coming or what am I required to do. Um, Also, like allow kids, just like with the parents, allow kids to express how they feel and help them process that. So the girl I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, what I did was I stopped trying to teach her the math. Like I literally told her, put your, she's looking at me, but I'm gonna fail. No, you're not. You have a 98. You at this point. And I told her to breathe. And then I just gave her space. And I'm like, where is this coming from? Because I know you can do this. I know you can do this. Where is it coming from? As soon as I gave her that, I just held the space for her. She let it all come out. I kid you not. And then, so by the end of our talk, the thing that struck me the most was, I asked her, I said, what would you want to hear from somebody who really loves you and wants the best thing for you in life? And
Mhm.
that little girl said, I just want them to tell me I'm doing a good job.
Wow. Wow.
Like, I had to refrain because it wasn't supposed to come from me. I knew that in the moment.
Yeah.
But when she said that, I could see release come out of her. And then
Mm.
ever since that conversation, this girl has like been on it. Like she has not even, she has so much confidence now in her not knowing what to do that she figures it out or she asks me for help and she gets it done and she doesn't deal with all the stress. So give them space, give them take time to talk to them.
Yeah, I love that. And it seems really simple to say you're doing a good job, but the pressure release that that gives you when you are really tight and uptight and stressed out about what's going on, and somebody just says, "You're doing a great job." Imagine what that feels like to any adult on their job. So we're talking about young adults and children here. And I think that's a great tip. Awesome. I think that's awesome. I'm so excited for us to continue our conversations about education, special education, parents, teacher perspectives, all of that. So be sure to join us every Tuesday night right here on Facebook Live and YouTube Live. And we work really hard to bring you a very unique perspective on education. So be sure to share this video with friends, colleagues, tell them to join us live so we can interact with them in the chat as well during the episode. And with that, we will see you all next week. Have a great Tuesday.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.